Over the last 2 weeks, we've discovered that binges are signals, and we've talked about the 8 reasons why they happen. But how do you figure out what your specific signals mean? Today, we're going to put on our scientist hat to decode your personal patterns. You are about to become the expert on your own experience with food. Welcome to Binge Eating Breakthrough, the podcast to help you stop feeling out of control around food and build trust with your body. If you've tried everything but still feel stuck, you're not alone. I've been there too. I'm Jane Pilger, and I'm here to help you see binge eating in a new way so you can finally break free. Each week, you'll get the tools and insights to create peace with food and your body. Your breakthrough starts now. Hello, trusted listener. I consider you a trusted listener because I trust that you are ready to become the scientist of your own experiences with food. I trust that you're willing to approach your relationship with food with curiosity rather than judgment. And I trust that you are open to discovering patterns you might never have noticed before. Now, over the past couple of weeks on the podcast, we have established that binges are signals and not setbacks. Lights on the dashboard that tell us there is something going on under the hood. And we've also explored the 8 primary reasons why people binge or feel out of control around food at times. Today, we're getting practical. We're going to learn how to decode your personal signals so that you know exactly where to focus your attention. So we've gotten under the hood. Now we're going to see what are the lights that come on your dashboard. So I want you to think of yourself as a scientist studying the most fascinating subject in the world, you. Scientists are curious. They are methodical, and they are open to being surprised by what they discover. They form hypotheses, but they are willing to let the data change their minds. They observe without judgment, knowing that every piece of information is valuable, even if it's not what they expected to find. Now, this is the approach I want you to take with your own patterns. You are not trying to judge or fix anything today. You are simply gathering information with the same curiosity that a scientist would when studying something completely new. All right, I'm going to give you what I'm calling the scientist's toolkit. These are specific tools for observation that will help you understand what your own signals are trying to tell you. All right, so tool number 1 is one of my favorites. It's the 3 powerful questions. And if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you've probably heard me talk about these before. So the 3 powerful questions, you can use these anytime you notice a signal. So this could be a craving, big desire to eat a lot of food. You can also use them after you've already eaten. I want you to just stop and ask yourself, what do I notice? What was happening right before this signal appeared? So if all of a sudden, I know for me, when I would get urges, when I would get that desire to, I just want to go eat a lot of food, it would often come really quickly. Sometimes over time, sometimes it would kind of build, but there were times where it was just boom, right there. So then you ask, what do I notice? What was happening? What was I feeling? What was I thinking? What was I experiencing? Really getting curious. Maybe I was sitting at my desk and trying to work on a problem. And I don't really have the answer, or I'm really worried about what somebody might think about my decision or my solution. Then all of a sudden, I have this intense desire to go to the pantry and get something to eat. What do I notice? What was I feeling? What was I thinking? What was I experiencing? That's question number 1 of the 3 powerful questions. What do I notice? Question number 2 of the 3 powerful questions is, what do I need? So based on what I notice, what might my body or brain have been asking for? So in the example of not really being able to figure something out with work, my brain is probably looking for a break because I'm really worried that I'm not going to be able to figure this out. So this seems like a really nice kind of escape. Or maybe what I need is just a break. I do need some space from this problem, but maybe food isn't going to give me the answer. Maybe if I go walk for 5 minutes in silence, maybe the answer will come to me. What do I notice? What do I need? Question number 3 is what's next? So what's next is really then how, now that I've identified what I'm noticing in my body, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing, and I'm asking myself what I need, the question of what's next is lovely because now I have choice. I get to respond. How can you respond to what you actually need rather than just the surface level craving? Because that's often what it is it's surface level. What you actually need is under the hood. What I actually need is just some space. I need to stop putting so much pressure on myself. Maybe I need some sunshine. Maybe I need a walk. So these questions can help you move from automatic reaction to conscious observation. You're gathering data about your own experience. The 3 powerful questions. What do I notice? What do I need? What's next? All right, tool number 2, the 3-part pattern discovery. So as you use the 3 powerful questions, start looking for patterns using the 3-part pattern discovery. So what does that mean? It means we are going to look for patterns. We are going to discover patterns in 3 areas, 3 parts, 3 areas: emotional, physical, and situational. So emotional patterns. What emotional patterns might I have? Do you notice signals when you're stressed, lonely, bored, anxious, or overwhelmed? Do certain emotions consistently precede your urges to eat a lot of food? Get curious. What are the patterns? What are my emotional patterns connected to my eating patterns? The second part of this is physical. What are the physical patterns that I notice? Do you notice signals at certain times of day? Maybe after not having eaten enough earlier. Maybe you ate a lot of food yesterday. You binged yesterday and you decided, I got to be good today. Maybe I shouldn't eat in the morning. I'm so full. I feel so gross. I'm either going to eat nothing or maybe I'm just going to have a green juice. And then now it's 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon and you find yourself all over again. There you are eating again. So maybe that's a physical pattern. Maybe you notice if you haven't eaten enough earlier in the day, that's what happens. Maybe it's when you're really tired. Maybe it's during certain times of your cycle. Hey, quick pause here because I want to make sure you know about a free live workshop that I'm hosting on October 13th. It's called The Telltale Signs a Binge is Coming and How to Break the Cycle. If this podcast gives you insights, the workshop is going to take it to the next level because you'll actually experience a practice to interrupt the binge cycle in real time. Sign up today at janepilger.com/event. So that's the second part, is physical patterns. There's also situational patterns. So situational patterns might include, do signals, those urges, desires, cravings to eat, do they appear in specific environments? Maybe it's around certain people. Maybe it's during particular activities or in response to specific triggers in your environment. So this might be, you know what, overall, I'm generally fine, but whenever I go to my parents' house, something happens. Maybe it is when I'm around this particular family member, maybe this particular friend. Maybe it's when I go out with my girlfriends on the way home. I'm always stopping to eat more food. Or maybe it's when I'm working on a deadline and I have something that's really happening there. So it could be anything, situational patterns. So start getting really curious. What are the patterns that you have emotionally, physically, and situational? When we can recognize and identify our patterns, then we're able to start to figure out and to work with them. So that's tool number 2 is the 3-part pattern discovery: emotional, physical, and situational. Tool number 3, hypothesize and test. Here's where the scientist mindset really comes in. So once you start noticing your patterns, you can form hypotheses about what your signals might mean and then test them. So for example, let's say you notice that consistently you have really strong cravings to eat around 3 p.m. Your hypothesis might be you're not eating enough at lunch. So to test this, you could try eating a more substantial lunch for a few days and see if the 3 p.m. cravings change. Or maybe you notice you tend to eat late at night or even wake up in the middle of the night to eat. Your hypothesis might be this is a signal you haven't eaten enough during the day. Now, I want you all to know this is a very common pattern. If you are somebody who eats late at night or wakes up in the middle of the night to eat, this is often your body's way of trying to get the nutrition it missed during the day. So the key is to approach these experiments with curiosity and not rigid rules. If your hypothesis is wrong, that's really valuable information also. Maybe those 3 p.m. cravings are not about lunch. Maybe they're about needing a break from work or managing afternoon stress. What I really like about the hypothesize and test approach is that we are literally trying things. We're trying something different. So often people who are stuck in the cycle are literally doing the same thing over and over. They are on this restrict binge cycle. We restrict, we end up binging, we freak out about the binge, we try to make up for it in some way or another that often leads us back to the binge, and we're literally on the hamster wheel and can't get off. So in this case, be a scientist. Let me experiment. Let me try different things. Now, sometimes it's hard to figure out what to change and what to do, but just see what comes up for you. And getting support, getting help with coming up with new experiments. Maybe you could try this. I have a client who is often saying, wow, the things that you tell me and the things that you suggest, they're not exactly rocket science. She says, but they are things I literally don't think of for myself. And when you tell me or you suggest something or you ask me to try something, it's like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When I put 2 and 2 together for somebody and I help them really see, here's how what you're doing is creating what is happening for you. And here's how we could try something different. It's like, oh yeah, that actually seems really straightforward, but was something I literally couldn't see for myself. And this makes sense. We often have blind spots that we just literally can't see. All right, so now let's connect our patterns that we've just discovered to the 8 reasons that we talked about last week on the podcast. So as you start to gather data about these patterns, you are likely going to start to see connections to the 8 reasons. So let me give you some specific things to look for each of the 8 reasons. If you suspect shame and judgment might be a primary factor for you, notice this. Do your eating episodes tend to happen after you've been criticizing yourself? Do you notice a pattern of self-attack followed by eating? Do you eat differently when you're being kind to yourself versus when you're being harsh? So many people, they start eating something, quote unquote, bad that they have deemed bad. And it's the harshness and the self-attack that starts that actually keeps them eating, not the food itself. If you think restriction might be playing a role, ask yourself this. Have I been trying to eat perfectly or follow very specific food rules? Have I been limiting certain foods or food groups? Am I eating enough during the day? Do my signals, do my urges, do my cravings tend to happen after periods of trying to control my eating? For nervous system dysregulation, pay attention to this. Do eating episodes correlate with feeling stressed, overwhelmed, or emotionally activated? Do I tend to eat when I'm in fight or flight mode? Does eating seem to calm my nervous system, even for a moment? If disconnection from your body resonates, notice this. Am I aware of hunger and fullness signals throughout the day? Do I eat without really tasting or enjoying the food? Do I feel disconnected from what my body actually wants or needs? For coping mechanism patterns, observe this. Do I automatically reach for food when I'm sad, anxious, bored, or lonely? Does eating feel like my go-to solution for difficult emotions? Do I have other ways of comforting myself when I'm struggling? Do I only have one tool in my emotional toolbox that maybe really isn't even that great of a tool to begin with? If attempting to control might be relevant for you, ask, am I constantly thinking about my food choices? Do I have rigid rules about eating? Do I feel like I need to monitor everything I eat? Does trying to be good with food often lead to feeling out of control later? And for habit patterns, notice this. Do eating episodes happen at the same time, in the same place, or in response to the same triggers, regardless of hunger? Do I eat automatically without really thinking about it? Am I eating the same foods? Am I turning to the same foods over and over again? And for negative self-talk, pay attention to this. What am I saying to myself throughout the day? How do I speak to myself before, during, and after eating? Does harsh self-criticism seem to trigger eating episodes? Now remember, you might recognize multiple reasons in your patterns, and that's completely normal. You might have answered yes to every single question I just asked, and that's fine. The goal here is not to find one perfect explanation. It's to understand the combination of factors that are most active for you. All right, so here's how we're going to begin your scientific observation. For the next few days, I invite you to simply start noticing. You don't have to change anything yet. You're just gathering data. And when you notice a signal, a craving, an urge, or an eating episode, pause and get curious. Use the 3 powerful questions. What do I notice? What do I need? What's next? Notice what category the trigger might fall into. Is this emotional, physical, or situational? And start looking for patterns over time. Maybe just keep some simple notes. You don't have to do formal official tracking, but some curious observations. You might notice things like, I seem to get strong cravings every Tuesday around 2 p.m. Or I notice I eat more when I've had a stressful day at work. The key word here is interesting. When you notice a pattern, instead of judging it, just think, that's interesting. This keeps you in scientist mode rather than shame mode. So let me share some common patterns that many people discover when they start paying attention, including one from my own experience that really surprised me. I will tell you this, before I tell my story, I will tell you a lot of people struggle on the weekends. They might be have no problem during the week, but then the weekends are really challenging for them. I was always the opposite. So I had no problem on the weekends, but my binges were very consistent. I definitely had a pattern of binging on Monday afternoon. And for the longest time, I really couldn't figure out why. I just knew Mondays were hard. Mondays were often I would have a bad day. This was my kind of code word for my husband. Once I finally told him about what I did, I wouldn't even say that I binged. I would not tell him what I ate. I would just say I had a bad day. Well, Mondays, I had a lot of bad Mondays. And when I started really getting curious about this and really approaching this like a scientist, I began to notice the pattern more clearly. And what I could see is I would have these big, active weekends. Maybe I was training, maybe I was racing, maybe I was traveling, socializing, lots of activities. And then on Monday, I would fill my calendar with work and appointments. But here's the kicker. So I would often take Monday off from exercise. It would be a day off from exercise. And I would think that because it was a rest day, I shouldn't need much food. But the reality was completely opposite. I actually needed more food and more rest than usual to recover and repair after those big weekends. But there was an even deeper layer. And as I kept observing and kept getting curious, I realized I rarely let myself truly rest. I was constantly on the go, always productive, always doing something. And the only time I actually slowed down was after a binge. So I realized that the binge was my body's way of forcing me to slow down when I wasn't willing to do it on my own. And this was such valuable information. It wasn't really about the food at all. It was about my relationship with rest, recovery, and giving myself permission to slow down. Now, here are some other common patterns that people discover. Late night, middle of the night eating often signals you haven't eaten enough during the day. Your body is trying to make up for the nutrition it missed. Weekend overeating might signal you've been restricting during the week, either with food rules or simply not eating enough. Eating immediately after getting home from work or even on your way home from work could signal you are using food to transition from work stress to home relaxation. Craving sweets in the afternoon might signal your energy is dropping because lunch wasn't substantial enough. Eating when you're not physically hungry but feeling emotional might signal that you need comfort, connection, or a way to process feelings. Eating really quickly or without tasting food might signal you're disconnected from the eating experience or that you feel like you need to eat quickly before you change your mind. Now, I want to tell you something really important about all of this. As we're becoming a scientist, we're looking at our patterns, we're hypothesizing, we're testing. It's important to know your first hypothesis about your patterns might be completely wrong. And that is perfectly okay. In fact, it's really valuable information. So maybe you think your late night eating is about emotions, but when you really start paying attention, you realize it's actually about not eating enough during the day. Maybe you assume your afternoon cravings are about boredom, but you discover they're actually about low blood sugar. Being wrong means you're learning. It means you're gathering more accurate information about what's actually happening rather than what you assumed was happening. But I want to be really clear about what this process is not. You are not trying to analyze every single eating moment. You are not trying to find the perfect explanation for everything. You are not trying to fix or control your eating right now. You are simply becoming curious about your own experience. You're building awareness. You're gathering information that will help you understand which of the 8 reasons might be most active for you. Now, some people worry that paying this much attention to their eating will make them obsessive or will trigger more restriction. And if you notice that happening, step back. This process should feel curious and gentle, not anxious or controlling. Now we're going to move forward with your data. So once you start identifying your patterns, which of the 8 reasons seem most relevant for you, you will know where to focus your attention. If you discover restriction is a major factor, you can focus on eating more regularly and challenging your food rules. If you find that nervous system dysregulation is playing a big role, you can prioritize practices that help regulate your nervous system. You don't have to address everything at once. Often working on one area creates positive changes in others. For example, when you start eating enough during the day, your nervous system often regulates more easily. When you practice self-compassion, you naturally become more connected to your body's signals. Remember, your body is always communicating with you. These signals are not problems to be eliminated. They are information to be understood. The better you get at decoding your signals, the better you can understand, the better you can respond to what you actually need. Think of this as developing fluency in your body's language. Right now, you might only understand a few basic phrases, but with practice and attention, you can become fluent in understanding exactly what your body is trying to tell you. So this week, I invite you to put on your scientist hat. Get curious about your own experience. Use the 3 powerful questions. Look for patterns in the emotional, physical, and situational categories. Form hypotheses and be willing to be surprised by what you discover. Remember, there are no wrong observations. Every piece of information you gather is valuable. You are becoming the expert on your own experience, and that expertise is going to be the foundation for creating lasting change. Now, next week, we are going to talk about what to do after a binge. We've kind of talked a lot about the signals and before and everything else, but how do we stay out of shame and judgment? We're going to talk about that next week, so be sure that you tune in. And until then, I invite you to stay curious. You're doing really important work, and every moment of awareness is a step toward the freedom you're seeking. That's what I have for you today. I'll see you next time. Want to go deeper and actually experience this work? Join me live on October 13th for my free online workshop, The Telltale Signs a Binge is Coming and How to Break the Cycle. Together, we'll explore the signals your body gives before a binge, and I will guide you through a practice to break the cycle. Save your seat today at janepilger.com/event. I'll see you there.